Welcome to the Power of Great, your host, Matt Crane, where every week we come to you on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher Radio, and we bring business people, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and individuals alike with one mission: to help you recognize that your current situation is not your defining moment. And this week, I'm so honored to bring to you one of my favorite entrepreneurs, Shawn Thomas of Ask a Millionaire. Guys and gals, Shawn Thomas is a lifestyle entrepreneur focused on contributing to the world through mentoring, coaching, and philanthropy. After the multi-million-dollar sale of his company, Shawn has embarked on the next chapter in his life, and that's to share business and the lessons he's learned along the way. As a lifestyle entrepreneur, Shawn has the freedom and flexibility to work around things he's passionate about without the worry or stress of earning an income, and tens of thousands of followers from all over the world tune in to see how he has created his success. Shawn Thomas, welcome to the Power of Great.
Welcome, Matt. It's so good to be here, dude. Like I said, I can always listen to that golden voice of yours anywhere online or on the phone, man. Love it.
I appreciate it. You know, Shawn, this is a big honor for me because we've talked several times offline. And one thing that I absolutely love about you is your consistency, your energy, and more importantly, your raw and your real authenticity. And so I want to jump right into it. Ask a Millionaire. Shawn Thomas. Who is Shawn Thomas and what is Ask a Millionaire?
Oh, man, talk about setting up a question. Well, I'll tell you this. It's funny how you say, my no-nonsense kind of direct approach is. When I was younger, and I don't want to give you my whole bio here. You can go to ShawnThomas.com and go to my About section, and you can see my entire PR written bio. But, when I was younger, I was that quintessential kid, immature, young kid that had an opinion with nothing backing the opinion. So I had to learn really quickly that if I wanted to be taken seriously in life, I needed to go out there and I needed to scrape up my ankles, scrape up my knees, scrape up my elbows, and earn my stripes so that when I spoke, I had something with validity and results behind it. And, that's how I've been my entire life. Is I've always been passionate about learning, passionate about finding out how I can bring out the best in myself. And now today, Ask a Millionaire is a platform through philanthropy, mentorship, and advising and consulting to help bring out the best in other people. And our core focus is to work with aspiring entrepreneurs, those entrepreneurs of the world that want to start their own business but just don't know how, and also small businesses that are trying to get to that pinnacle moment of doing a profitable annual sales of $1 million. And the reason that I encapsulate 1 million as my critical mission statement with Ask a Millionaire is once you hit $1 million in profitable annual sales as a business owner, then you should be on the road to 10 million to 100 million as soon as possible. And there are some much better resources, the resources that I used when I hit my $1 million in revenue took it to 20 million. I can introduce my tribe, my Most Won't I Will tribe, to that community to help take the business to the next level. So Ask a Millionaire is about working with business owners that want to get to 1 million in profitable annual sales as quickly as possible.
I love that. And one thing I love about Ask a Millionaire is that you take the word ask and you literally blow the ass end out of it. Excuse my language right here on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, because to me, the most important word in Ask a Millionaire and what I see from you and what I watch from you is ask. And so talk to us about how Ask a Millionaire was really formulated from a Shawn Thomas perspective, and just how important it is for those entrepreneurs out there to literally ask the right questions.
I'll tell you, on the way over to the office this morning, I gave a lot of thought to what is the one thing that I would want to tell somebody that's just starting out. What would I have told myself when I was in my young 20s? What would I need to do to become the most successful person that I could be? And the number one thing I would tell myself is to learn and ask questions. You see, I have a favorite saying of my own that says, I'm not young enough to know everything. There's such maturity and wisdom in that statement, not just patting myself on the back, but I'm not young enough to know everything is so quintessential about every young generation, whether it's the millennials, or it was the X and the Y and the Z. Every young person, not every, but most, we feel like we know everything. Don't tell us what we need to know, because we already know it, even though we haven't been through it. And I wish I could just kick myself in the butt and say, just shut up and listen to those people that can tell you how to shorten your path to your success in your life. And if I had learned how to ask the right questions, which comes from talking to the right people, I would have been a millionaire when I was 30 as opposed to 40. So that's the advice that I try to teach people is you got to ask the right questions. If you don't know how to ask the right questions, talk to the right people and they'll tell you the questions you should ask.
I love that, because for everyone that's on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher right now, if you didn't hear my man get super passionate when he was detailing that, then you've missed the whole purpose of who I really see Shawn Thomas is. It's not a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's not an alter ego. Ask a Millionaire is Shawn Thomas legitimately wanting you to ask the right questions, have the courage to ask. So, Shawn, I want to kind of take this a little bit further. You're really looked at as one of those go-to influencers in the game, whether it's Instagram, Periscope, Facebook. You get asked to go all over the world and speak, and yet you really have the word influencer, and you want people to respect that. You want people to understand how to connect with influencers and how to ask the influencers the right question. Do you find entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs pushing businesses to influencers, or how would you advise some of our listeners that might be those wantrepreneurs how to really reach out and get in touch with influencers in a better and more professional way?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm so passionate about helping people in this regard. And I tell you, a lot of times, especially on live video streams and things like that, people think I'm pissed off. And really, I'm just passionate. You talk to any person who is passionate about what they do, and they're almost going to sound like they're pissed off, because, sometimes you got to talk to people at a 50 for them to actually hear it at an 8, and actually do something with it. But so I'm never pissed off when I'm actually giving advice or talking to people. I'm just really passionate about what I do. So let me answer your question. This social media world to me is something that is so new, because for the 11 years that I had my business, I didn't do any social media. In fact, it was kind of before all these platforms were created. I just was busy building my company, and I used traditional methods of reading magazines, reading articles, going to seminars, hiring coaches, those types of things, that I never really utilized social media. So over the last year, let me tell you what I've learned. I've learned that the majority of people that are on social media simply don't know how to approach someone on social media. So I actually wrote a blog about it, and I posted it at askamillionaire.com. And it's about the top 5 tips to successfully approach someone on social media. And I won't go through all 5, but I'll tell you the number one thing that people don't do is they just don't even create a public profile. They think that we're not, as the receiver, the influencer, that we're not going to actually look at them and who they are before we contact them. So if they've got a private profile, or they've got a bunch of sarcastic pictures of shares and things like that, influencers like myself and celebrities and business people, we won't even pay it any attention. So one of the first things I tell people is you need to get your own profiles in order before you start utilizing social media in order to reach out and connect with influencers. Because I'll tell you this right now, if some of the big name celebrities, names unmentioned, have proven influencer marketing is a part of the future for almost any type of business. Like literally almost any type of business can benefit by working with influencers to spread the word to their audiences. And it is helping more businesses than ever. So influencer marketing is something I'm learning. It's something that I think has a place in the future of growing your business.
I couldn't agree with you more, Shawn. And one thing that I really love is that there's a big difference in wanting to reach an influencer and then wanting to get an influencer's attention. You can reach influencers. Most people fail to realize that influencers, because they're always so intuitive to the marketplace, know that social media is something they have to monitor. It's something they have to be involved in. But there's a big difference in reaching them and getting their attention. And so I love how you put that out there, is that create a public profile. How simple is that? Because if you're an influencer and you're looking at someone that you possibly might want to know more about, if you can't see them, then you're not paying attention to them. So I love that point. But, you know, Shawn, for me, one of the things I really want you to lay out for our audience is that you're just not an entrepreneur because you fell into it. Knowing your story, really reading who you are, is this has been in your bloodline, in my opinion, is that, you know, you went to Alaska and you had dreams of, your big three dreams were getting a record deal, travel the U.S., and then get on MTV. And so one thing that I love about you and Ask a Millionaire is that you understand what it's like to reach your goals and then have those goals taken away from you. You know, you reached your record deal, things were going great, you were very successful, and then you were told, hey, thanks, but no thanks. Talk to us about that moment and how you persevered through that.
You know, I'll tell you, Matt, one of the reasons that I think that people connect and feel some relatability out there with me, and of course, I don't try to be everything to everyone. I'm very specific about who I am, and I try to be as transparent of an individual as I can so that the people listening to me can say, well, I don't like that guy, or, well, I love this guy and I need to see what he's about and I need to connect with him. I want to be very specific and intent with who I am and be transparent, because I think that that's the way that you can succeed in life. You know, and the reason why the people relate to me is I wasn't handed anything. Both of my parents were in the military. We traveled around as a young kid 5 different places before we ended up in Alaska at the age of 8 years old. So I grew up in a very small town, like many of my followers and people that I connect with on social media. And they all want to know, well, how did you get out of that small town? How did you actually become what you've become when you didn't have all the resources? My parents weren't wealthy. We were low middle America income family. If I wanted some, I learned at an early age, I mean, literally at the age of 12, that if I wanted something materialistic, I had to work for it. And I don't mean chores. I'm talking I had to go get a job at 12 years old. And I'm not going to give you the sob story, but, you know, I got a great sob story that delivering newspapers at 12 years old at 4:30, pitch black weather in Alaska in 20 degree below zero, the hills are going both ways up. I paid my dues of knowing what hard work really was. I mean, literally pitch black, 20 below zero, 4:30 in the morning, walking around in boots with, it was insane. But as I look back on it, I didn't even think about it. You know why? Because I said, I don't care what it takes to do what I have to do today. I want the results that it's going to bring. And I've kept that mindset my entire life, which is I don't even think about the work that needs to be done. I just do it because I know with the right work, the results are going to be there. And I can measure and I can continue to build upon results. Results don't lie. So throughout high school, I set a goal because MTV came out to further the story that you're asking about. I decided, you know, hey, that MTV stuff looks pretty dang cool. I want to get on MTV. I want to be a professional singer. I want to get out there. So at 18 years old, 2 weeks after graduating high school, I jumped on a plane with $200 and headed to sunny Southern California to pursue the dream. Long story short, 3 years later, I got a deal on Warner Brothers Records, one of the largest record labels in the world, and traveled the entire United States with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus as the main act in the circus with 2 other guys, and we were a little boy band. And during that year, I lived more of this crazy rock and roll lifestyle in a year than most people get to live in their entire life. It was crazy. Fans mauling us, signing autographs, getting in the clubs, being treated like VIP at 21 years old. It was ridiculously amazing. And then what happens is we get done about 2 weeks before our contract. Our first 1-year contract is about to expire. And they say, you know what, guys? We know this was supposed to be a 2-year thing, and this has been a great time. You guys have really worked hard. You've done a great job, but we're not going to extend it for the second year. We really appreciate the hard work you've done. You take care of yourselves, and please keep in touch. And I was like, what? That was, I had assumed that this was my meal ticket. I had never really paid my dues by getting out in the real world, if you will. I was going to school part-time in college when I got the record deal, so I dropped out, of course, to travel the country. I was not prepared for what the next step was going to be. And that's where my biggest learning lesson with Ask a Millionaire is coming to play is at that moment when I got finished with my contract at 22 years old, I had no direction, hardly any money left because I had so much fun spending it on the road, and I had no mentors in my life. We didn't have social media. We didn't have the power of great podcasts for me to listen to and get direction from. I had to just go out there and just get started. And I do what so many people do. I woke up 9 years later with nothing, no results, no money, still broke, still hungry, still wanting to be rich 9 years later. It was a crazy ride, and I'll tell you this, it sounds cool as a story today at 46 years old to be a multimillionaire and be able to live off of passive income from investments. But I'll tell you this right now, those years, those 9 years should have never happened, Matt, because I should have had somebody in my life that I could talk to and turn to help give me some direction and pull the greatness out of me, because I knew I was destined for greatness. I just didn't know how to go find it. So through podcasts like yours, people are having access to people that can help bring out their greatness. And we just didn't have that when I was in my 20s. And so you just never know what's going to happen. So people ask me today, Shawn, why don't you go out there and buy a yacht? Why don't you go out there and buy a Ferrari and all these types of things? I say, you know what? I didn't come from money. I know what it's like to lose everything that you think you've got as far as momentum. I'm in preservation. I don't want to lose what I have. I'm very careful with my money. I'm very careful with what I do business with. And that is something that I've seen peers of mine that have made millions of dollars lose it all in the matter of an instant, because they just keep thinking that the money train is going to continue. And then all of a sudden, boom, 2008 hits, real estate goes down, and everybody loses their money. I do not want something like that to happen. So I continually stay on my A game every single day to ensure it doesn't happen.
You know, Shawn, I absolutely love that part of the story. So everyone on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, we're live with my man, Shawn Thomas, creator and founder of Ask a Millionaire, lifestyle entrepreneur. And I want to give a big shout out to the folks at Rush Impact Media, my man, Jeremy Warner, who really play a major part from a production standpoint with the Power of Great podcast. They're the Wizard of Oz, if you will, behind the curtain, making sure that we're bringing you the best of the best every single week. And you know, Shawn, something that you said there was that people expect that money train to come, you know, and you experienced success when you created a company called Uniguest. So if anyone's ever gone into a hotel and has used the business office, probably 99% of them have used your company or your product. And yet, you know, when you were able to take that company and build it to a multi-million-dollar sale, and now growing it from you out of your home in Memphis to Inc. 500 status, you know, talk to us about the dedication, what you had to sacrifice, and how the term entrepreneur really started to unfold for you.
Let me tell you a little bit about the story of how the business was created, Matt, because a lot of people say, I've got a great idea, I don't know how to get started. Or, you know, I just don't even know how to get started in general in creating wealth in my life by owning a business. In 1999, I got started. I got involved in another business before I started my own business. I got involved with actually a guy who was not the most up and up guy out there in the world. In fact, he's in jail right now. But he had an idea for a company. I was naive enough to get involved in business with this person. And for 2 years, I helped this guy try to get this business going. I won't get into the detail of what it was. But for 2.5 years, here is what I did. And here is what I tell people they need to do in order to be a successful business person in their own right. I learned how to be an expert in an industry. And that was the hotel industry. For 2 years, I learned everything there was to know about internet, telephony, wiring, wireless internet, cabling, the buying patterns of hotels, all of the different roles that each of the employees play at a hotel, who I need to contact from an initial sales call up to who the decision makers were. I've learned about franchise organizations, franchisees, management companies, ownership groups. I knew everything there was that if I was going to sell a product to the hotel industry, I knew how to do it. Then what I did is after we came off that failed business after 2.5 years, I told myself, I said, you know what? Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. It was time for me to stand up that 8th time. And I said, you know what? I need to take matters into my own hand and start my own company. So I decided, I just took a step back and I said, what is going to be something that I can do that doesn't require a lot of money, but can have a big impact as far as a product is concerned into the hotel industry. So I created this little computer to put into a lobby of hotels. I bought one computer. It's just like, kids that buy candy and then sell the candy and then buy more candy, sell more candy, and then you just kind of grow and you do bigger volume over time. A lot of the things that people are doing on Alibaba and AliExpress, they're buying, $500 worth of product, selling it for $1,000, buying $900 worth of product, selling it for $1,500, buying $1,200, and then gradually increasing. I did the same thing in my business. So what I did is I became an industry expert, and I was always great at sales, but I got back to the bare basics of sales, which was it's all about prospecting and getting in front of as many people as possible. So from the time I started my company in 2002 to 2006, 4 years, I only got up to $250,000 in annual sales in my business in 4 years. But from 2006, I went from 250 to 478 to 780 to 1.2 to 2.3 to 4 to 3.2 to 4.5 to 9 million. Business escalated so quickly because I set the foundation and created this scalable type of foundation. So what I try to tell people these days is, if you have that one idea, that's great. But you've got to have that industry experience and that knowledge of your customer so that they're going to buy into your story, that you're the person that they should be buying from. Now, over time, of course, I just like any business, competition came up. And everybody has this Instagram rhetoric life of, well, don't worry about your competition. Just do your own thing. Well, that's complete rhetoric because you got to know what your competition's doing so that you can continue to outmaneuver and outplay them and bring more value to your customers than they are. And so it's important as an entrepreneur, as you're building your company, that's part of it. But people, what I learned very quickly once we started to get to that multi-million-dollar business, that is this. And you see this on many of the popular television shows that are out there today, which we all know those popular reality business television shows is this. If you want to build a legitimate business once over $1 million, you're no longer going to be about building the company yourself or being a solopreneur. You're going to have to learn how to build people and become a true leader and create other leaders in your organization. When I sold my company in 2013, we had 100 employees. As an entrepreneur, I can tell you, for your listeners, if you get the opportunity and you are blessed enough to build a company that employs and creates jobs in your community for families to put food on their table, and you can successfully build people and build that company, there is, besides your spiritual nature in your life and maybe your family and love life, there's no better feeling than being able to look back and take a step back and say, wow, my one idea has changed hundreds, if not thousands of lives as an entrepreneur. It is one cool feeling.
Yeah, and I love that. I absolutely love that story because you took something and you wanted to solve a problem. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you heard my man Shawn Thomas, and I hope you heard him loud and clear. It was about the impact. What could he do? What could he solve? And what product could he bring to the market to create an impact for other people? That is what my man Shawn Thomas and Ask a Millionaire is all about. And Shawn, speaking of no better feeling, you recently have been able to take, your entrepreneurial hard work. It paid off in the sale of your first company. You're now building your second with Ask a Millionaire. But you've also recently started to help other companies really start to live out their dream. And you recently had an angel investment with the company. I believe it's Smoke Cubes. And you've really been able to kind of chronologize that story some on social media. So talk to our audience about, when you talk about philanthropy, other than just doing good deeds for people, how you're really trying to help entrepreneurs who earn it create a real business.
Absolutely, Matt. What it's about is I am now part of that ripple process that we all hear about and read about, an inspirational, creating the ripple type of format. And I tell you, besides creating jobs with the company that I have, you talk about leveling up. If you're going to gamify your life and you're going to try to level up in different chapters in your life and get to that next level, I'll tell you, let me give you a story around that. When I sold my company in 2013, I was approached by a guy in California. This is different than Smoke Cubes that you just spoke of. This was my first investment. I met a guy who was couch surfing. For your audience that doesn't know what couch surfing is, it means you don't have a home, but you've got friends that are more than willing to let you sleep on their couch because you're a good person, and you just kind of, once you've overstayed your welcome, you move on to the next couch. So this guy was couch surfing, and I got introduced to him through one of my entrepreneur friends out in California. And he told me about his business, and I was renting. I had the fortunate circumstance that I was renting a cool little beach house in Manhattan Beach, California, and it had 3 bedrooms, and it was just me, so I was only using one of them. And I said to the guy, I said, Tony, you're a really nice guy. If there's anything I can do to help, if you need a place to stay, I've got 2 bedrooms that I'm not even using. If you need anything and you need a place to stay, quit couch surfing, come stay with me. So, being a humble guy that he was, he turned me down. And then, a couple weeks later, he called me up and he says, were you really serious or were you just being nice? Because you never know if somebody's real, olive branch is legit. And I said, of course I'm serious. So he moved in with me, and he was running his company. And even though he was doing, $1 million and a half a year in revenue in his company, he wasn't making any money at all. And he was barely scraping by. And so we got to know each other while he was staying with me. I got to know him and started to mentor him and advise him in his business. And within 6 to 9 months, I made an investment in his company and loaned him $500,000 that was very, very pinnacle in the turnaround of his company to take it to the next level. And I then later increased that by another $450,000 to almost $1 million. And today, 2 years later, his company is on the verge of hitting $10 million in revenue. He's got his own place. He's got a majorly awesome team with his own offices, and he is now a multimillionaire. And it is so cool to sit there and talk about that with him. And to me, I just feel great that I was able to do that for him. And he always has to say, how much he appreciated it. I'm like, Tony, you've told me 10 times, man, I know you appreciate it. What's next? What are we doing? And I tell you, it's a really cool feeling to be able to pay it forward, because in 2006, for those that get to know my story, I had an angel investor invest in me. In 2006, I was doing $250,000 in revenue, barely making a profit. but I had just scored a big contract with a major hotel chain, and I convinced an angel investor to buy 51% of my company, and it was his mentorship and his knowledge of the space that allowed me to blossom as an entrepreneur and give him a great return on his investment and turn it into a success story. So to be able to do that for somebody else is really cool. And in January, speaking of the company that you talked about, Smoke Cubes, a 20-year-old kid on Instagram found me, told me a story. I listened to it. I loved the product. I loved his gumption and his resourcefulness. And in January of this year, I invested $150,000 in his business and moved him to Nashville, co-signed on a condo for him, and he's working out of the offices here in Nashville, and we're helping build his company. And it's such a cool feeling.
Yeah, I love that. You know, what I really love about those stories, Shawn, is that, you know, that's part of your journey, part of your life, and how, you know, for me, it leads me to my next question. You know, why do I really like listening and viewing Shawn Thomas, everyone out there listening? Well, let me tell you what, guys. From start to finish, this dude is all passion, all business, but he also understands that it's not all glitz and glamour. It's not all cars. It's not all watches. It's not all fancy things. It's really rolling up your sleeves and getting the job done. And so, Shawn, it leads me to this question. What is your definition of being an entrepreneur?
You know, my definition is simple. It's somebody who actually owns a business. You know, if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. Whether or not you bought a franchise, whether or not you started the thing from scratch, if you own a business, you know, you're a business owner. You know, there's a difference between being here's something that I learned, Matt, because once you take a company to $20 million, $50 million in revenue, you're no longer just a CEO. You're no longer just a business owner. There are different skill sets to being an entrepreneur and being a CEO. It is completely different. The bigger you get, the more knowledge about financial statements and moving a ship. Driving a speedboat is much easier for an entrepreneur than driving a cruiser, a big cruise ship, because it's a completely different type of skill set. And so I think that anybody that is willing to say, you know what, I'm hanging up my employee hat and I'm going to create a business, or I'm going to buy a business because I don't want to start it from scratch. I want something that's already in existence. I think that's an entrepreneur, someone that has those juices, because that person had a choice. They could either just stay at a job, collect a paycheck, and do their role of responsibility, or they could go out there and be fiscally responsible for every single person, every single customer, every single vendor that they do business with, and manage all of their relationships. That's what an entrepreneur is all about. It's all about wanting to be in the complete game and control the game.
Yeah, I love that. And understanding that you got to take the risk. You can't go, you know, you can't dip your toe in the water and try to wade. Sometimes you just got to jump in the deep end and hope you come up. But, you know, Shawn, you hear this all the time. You got to be a hard worker. You have to have dedication. You have to have the grind and the hustle. But yet you brought a terminology to the table that most people know, and you were able to phrase it with entrepreneurship in a way that led you to being selected to give a TED Talk in Colorado, and that was naivete. And you recently wrote a book around it. It's an ebook that you can also get on askamillionaire.com or ShawnThomas.com. And talk to us really quickly in our audience why you believe that naivete is something that entrepreneurs need to tap into.
Well, you know, what I've found over the last year of mentoring people and advising and consulting with people, Matt, is there's two emotions that normally prevent people from finding success in their life. And I'm talking about the complete definition of success. I'm not just talking about monetary. I'm talking about spiritual. I'm talking about your family, your love, your friends, your health, your philanthropy, your finances. All of those combined to that complete definition of success. The two things that prevent people from finding success in their life are fear and cynicism. And I started to try to find a solution of how to conquer those two emotions in order to persevere and break out and unleash your full potential in life. And the only thing I could come up with that made sense for me was the power of naivety. Naivety is the ability to overcome fear and cynicism with a mindset that says, I don't know the outcome of the future and I don't care. I just want to give it a try and see what happens. And so many successful businesses come from the craziest situations, and it was because they just went into it with a naive mindset of not knowing who knows what the future is going to hold. You can plan or you can be spontaneous, but the future cannot be controlled. So why would you want to be fearful of it? You know, so many people, much of your audience and the people that I work with on a daily basis are surrounded by people that try to protect them. We call them haters. We call them dream stealers. We call them all kinds of things. We all have those people that we think are trying to hold us down. But in reality, because some people get controlled by fear or cynicism, they're just trying to protect you. But what I say is this: what are they trying to protect you from? Success? Because they don't know what the future is going to hold just as much as we don't know what the future is going to hold. So why would you want to protect somebody from success? Let me have my naive mindset that says, let me just find out what's going to happen. If I put my hand on the stove and I burn myself, then I'm going to know not to do it again. But I'll tell you what, over time, I'm going to learn to listen to somebody that says, listen, that's hot. Don't touch it. And I'll believe them and I won't touch it. But we all have to be able to learn certain things by just going through it. Because if we only listened or believed things to be acceptable from what other people told us, we wouldn't be on the moon. We wouldn't be trying to travel to Mars. So there's a certain amount of things in this world that we've got to have a certain amount of naivety that says, I don't know what the future is, but I just want to see, and I'm going to go for it. And that's what it's about. So the book, The Power of Naivety, is all about embracing the unknown as opposed to being fearful of it and cynical of it.
Embrace the unknown. Don't be fearful of it. So, Shawn, in closing, my man, I know our audience is chomping at the bit right now to find out how they can get more from you and where they can find out how they can get in contact with you. So where are the best places for our audience to really get more from Shawn Thomas and Ask a Millionaire?
I'll tell you right now, the key focal point that we've got is just askamillionaire.com. I try to put up as many blogs about great information from my audience that I know will have the biggest impact. But the number one place that people can connect with me one-on-one and get answers to their questions, pick my brain, help with their personal business or how to get into business, sales, whatever it might be, is I've got a Facebook group. If you go to askamillionaire.com, there'll be a link within the next day or two on our website for our private Facebook group. It's just called Most Won't I Will on Facebook. And there's a small one-time subscription fee. And I'll tell you this, the reason that I charge for that, Matt, is you know and I know, I've been on social media doing this type of stuff for over a year. And I finally came to the conclusion that there are an endless supply of 97%ers that just aren't going to learn. They just aren't going to even be able to absorb the information that I give them through whether it's myself or some of my Ask a Millionaire contributors and other entrepreneurs. And I've got to have a forum that the 3%ers with the right mindset and the people that have woken up have a place that we can do deep dive conversations to help them on their journey. And so we just started this Facebook group actually yesterday. And man, I tell you, I'm more excited than ever to deep dive with the people that are in this group because they're looking for answers and I'm ready to work my butt off for them. So that's the best place.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Power of Great podcast with my man, Shawn Thomas, Ask a Millionaire. Look, every single week, I'm humbled, blessed, and honored to be your captain on this ship to help you recognize that your current situation is not your defining moment. And I leave you with this every week. Success is not measured by what you step out of, rather by what you are committed to step into. Thank you for joining me on the Power of Great, and I look forward to to seeing and hearing from you all next week.